I am Bryce Newberger, and this is the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix, Chapter 11. The sky blackened like a bruise going from the deep blue to black. It was getting late, but Cal was not thinking about that. He was thinking about the bully ox being dragged helplessly back into an alley by Winston. He was also not thinking about the large green hands that were about to seize him. Within seconds, Cal found himself face to face with Skadel.
"Been sneaking around, have we?"
Cal could only shake his head nervously.
"Oh, lying won't get you nowheres with me."
Cal looked around. Winston's shop was filled with shelves and displays of expensive, ornate decorations, the type of stuff Cal would normally consider boring and outside of his interest or notice. This time, he was scoping them out like his life depended on it. One particular item was within hand's reach. It was a long, heavy metal candle holder with a 3-footed base that came to nice, sharp points. He decided that would do and grabbed the candle holder and delivered a hard thud into the brute's forehead. With a loud, "Ow!" Skadel howled and released the small boy. Cal then kicked the monster in the shin, but that seemed to have no effect. He rolled underneath one of the display tables and emerged on the other side in time to see blood-blinded Skadel reaching for him. Cal stomped on his fingers, bending one of them at an awkward, unnatural position. Skadel was now howling like a banshee and raging like a bull. He cast the table to the side, throwing and breaking most of the merchandise. Cal became frozen in stark white dread as he was out of options. Skadel clutched Cal with his good hand and raised him 2 meters into the air. At this moment, Winston emerged from the back door with Ox in tow.
"What are you doing in my shop?"
he exclaimed. One sharp, savage glance from Skadel shut everyone up. Without a word, he gave Cal a hard knock on the head, rendering him unconscious.
"Where are you taking him?"
inquired Winston, but Skadel just walked out the front door with his captive. Away in the forest, at the humble house of Bryn, the door opened to the children sitting patiently waiting for a mother who would never set foot in their home again. Standing in the doorway, they saw what appeared to be Ada. The doppelganger stepped into the room. The children lit up. Then the mood darkened. "Where's Papa?" Amora asked. The imposter looked about, ignoring the children. They didn't seem to register that she had never seen this place before. In a calm, level tone, the surrogate mother said, "Go to bed," and then added a smile after the fact, as if it were a last-minute detail she accidentally skipped over. Amora's gut tightened. Her intuition told her, like a sixth sense, that something was disgustingly, horribly wrong. Again she asked, "Where's Papa?" This time her mother snapped with a violent tone, "Go to bed!" Amora was a good child with barely a blemish on her metaphorical record, but an innate sense of repulsion begged her to cry out, "No!" The motherly-looking creature before her then smiled with a sophisticated air. She mentally gathered herself, then answered, "Your father is a murderer and a lout, and you will never see him again." It was then that Amora's heart shattered. On the streets of the Merchant's Corner, Eldrich stealthily followed the kidnapper Winston and his quarry, Ox. He ducked behind some barrels as his target stopped in the alley behind his shop and fiddled with the door. Eldrich could hear loud noises and a struggle inside. He then heard a noise that troubled him more than anything. He heard Skadel howl in rage. The young hero decided he would need something special for this impromptu rescue mission, and at that thought his pack practically began to sing to him. He unattached the roll of cloth strapped to the top of his pack and opened it to reveal the seemingly magical rapier from that mysterious customer. Again, he was surprised as the weapon felt too light in his hand, as if it weren't made of metal but the air itself. With his newfound courage in hand, he crept to the window and watched as the front door closed on the other end. Skadel must have just left. Eldrich thanked his lucky stars that the beast was leaving. Perhaps he wouldn't need the sword after all. Winston threw Ox to the floor. The boy began to sob. "Shut up," said Winston as he kicked at Ox's legs. He seemed frantic and deranged. The big merchant then started to rummage through random drawers. Anytime Ox moved, he was shouted at in an incoherent string of blasphemy-riddled curse words. He finally retrieved a spool of wire and wrapped Ox's hands behind his back as the boy squealed like a piglet about to be slaughtered. Eldrich tightened his grip on the sword. He knew he needed to stop this madness, but he lacked the courage. His whole being felt like retching from how wrong the situation was. He stared at his feet, hoping that by looking down, the situation would just pass him by. He heard Ox cry out in pain. Instead of being startled into looking up, he dropped to the ground, crumpled into a ball, and cried as he listened to the loud thud followed by Ox's screams. followed by another thud, which was followed by more screams. Cal awoke with a bump on the back of his head, which hurt every time he touched it. He looked around. He seemed to be laying on a soft red couch in a library of sorts. The room was finely decorated with gaudy relics scattered about. He rubbed his head, which hurt profusely, but he just couldn't resist. After a while of rubbing his skull, he decided it was time to investigate. There was a sturdy wooden desk at the far end of the room. Cal decided to start there. He climbed atop the heavy leather chair and looked at all the papers on the desk. The top one was some sort of letter. It read, "Esteemed General, we should meet to discuss the fate of my fair town." Cal wasn't sure what that meant, but he decided it probably didn't matter. He turned around to look out the window. He could practically see the whole town from his point of view. He looked for his house, but it was blocked by the trees. Though now, with the whole town in perspective, he was certain he knew where he was. Someplace high up. The mayor burst from a set of large double doors on the other side of the room. "Get away from that window," he bellowed. Cal spun around with a fright and put his hands to the side, the way children do when startled into thinking they've done something wrong. "Why?" he asked the question out of reflex. Mayor Gowan was taken aback by the boy's innocent question. He decided that maybe he should rethink his plans for the lad. He adopted a softer tone. "Never mind that." He grabbed 2 chairs and set them facing one another. "Come, have a seat." He sat himself in a chair and patted the one opposite. Cal obeyed and sat facing the mayor. There was a brief pause, that awkward lull between the conversation where the first to speak was awarded the choice of topic. Cal took the prize by asking, "Why was my daddy arrested?" Gowan nodded, then stiffened his neck and puffed out his chest as if he were about to answer a tax question at an electoral debate. "A very good question," he said with practiced composure. "Why don't you tell me what you know about the whole thing, and then I'll fill in the gaps?" Cal frowned with consternation as he considered the offer. He decided that to agree would allow him to boast of his investigative work. "Okay," he finally said, and in an 8-year-old manner that seemed to lack oral punctuation, spouted, "Pa was taken away this morning, so I followed him to the guardhouse where I saw Captain Bird and Dale call my ma a cheater." At this, he went on a quick tangent. "But my ma ain't cheat. She never cheated nobody," he finished with a furrowed brow. He then waited for Mayor Gowan to nod in nonverbal agreement of his mother's virtue before he continued. When that was satisfied, he finished with, "And then they were mean to Pa, and I didn't like that," he said, ending with a matter-of-fact chin jut. The mayor rubbed his neck as if he were massaging a sore bunion. "You heard all that, did you?" "Yes," Cal pouted. "I'm sorry for everything, lad. I did not mean for this to turn so rotten." He struggled to find words to reason with the adolescent mind. "Something bad is coming. Really bad." Cal seemed to change his tone into that of curiosity. "How bad?" "Everybody dead bad." "That's really bad," Cal concluded. "I needed to have someone hurt so that nobody had to die." It wasn't a great explanation, but he had hoped it would sink in. It was all that he had to really offer the boy. "But why my parents? Why not other people? This isn't fair," Cal voiced in a manner that had drained away all childish demeanor and left only true sadness. "A fair question, my boy," Gowan agreed. "A fair question. Sometimes we don't get to choose who gets hurt. We can only act and react." Cal didn't quite understand the last point, but decided to settle the matter by saying, "Well, it still isn't fair," as his little face soured. "I agree," said the mayor in all honesty. "Now you must promise to keep all you know a secret. You do know what a secret is, right?" "Geez, everyone knows what a secret is." "Good. Then do you promise?" "I don't know," Cal considered the implications as best he could. "Can I tell my pa?" Gowan thought about this and decided it would be harmless to say yes, considering the father's predicament. "Can I tell my brothers and sister?" Gowan's heart sunk as he came to terms that this boy would be too much of a loose end. "No, you can't," he said as he reached behind his regal waistcoat. "Well, I tell Eldrich everything, and Teddy." As Cal babbled on, he didn't notice Gowan pressed the hand-sized crossbow to his head. "Well, there are some things I don't tell Amora, but this is a big thing to—" He looked up to see the end of a bolt pointed at his forehead. Cal had one last question, but it went unanswered, as the bolt stuck into the back of the cushion behind him. Eldrich could barely take the cacophony of screams anymore. He became resolute. Raising the sword high above his head, he brought the weapon down across the door, slashing it asunder. Winston looked up from his victim with sheer surprise. "Stop!" demanded Eldrich. Thank you for listening. I'm Bryce Newberger, and this has been the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to purchase the full book, then either look up New Books on the Google Play bookstore, NEU Books, or simply click the link in the description. The book is only $5, and I appreciate your support.